April 1943, above the North Sea. The dawn light slices across the cockpit glass of Oberleutnant Hans Becker's Messerschmitt Bf 109. Frost clings to the edges of his canopy as he scans the gray sky for movement. Radio chatter crackles in his headset, reports of yet another wave of American bombers heading toward the continent. Same old story, his wingman mutters over the channel. They'll come, they'll burn, they'll die. Far below, the Allied formation hums across the horizon. Lumbering B-17 flying fortresses, engines droning in rhythm, escorted by a new fighter the Germans barely recognize. Through his binoculars, Becker studies the shape: long fuselage, slender wings, a low tail. It looks odd, foreign. That's the new American toy. Another pilot laughs over the radio. Mustang, they call it. A horse without teeth. The Luftwaffe pilots laugh too. Intelligence reports describe it as a short-range escort. Fast at low altitude, but useless where the real war is fought, high above 20,000 feet. It's powered by a Packard-built Allison engine. Sluggish, gasping for air, where the Messerschmitt and Focke-Wulf thrive. As the two formations close, Becker throttles up. "We'll swat them like flies," he says. Moments later, tracers streak across the thin blue. A dogfight unfurls in seconds. Becker's 109 rolls behind one of the new Mustangs, its pilot struggling to climb. Becker fires. The Mustang shudders, smoke pouring from its engine. "See? Paper wings," he sneers, banking away. But even as he watches the wreck spiral toward the sea, he feels no triumph. The bomber's streams seem endless now, waves of silver crossing the skies from England every week. The Reich can still fight. But for how long? At the time, though, the laughter continues. Because no one, not even the Americans, realizes yet that the plane they mock is about to change everything. October 1943, Inglewood, California. The smell of hot metal and machine oil fills the North American aviation factory. The sound of rivet guns hammers through the air like distant gunfire. Rows of silver aircraft fuselages gleam under warehouse lights. The newest batch of P-51 Mustangs, still bare of paint, waiting for their engines. At the end of the assembly line, a wooden crate marked Rolls-Royce. Merlin 61 has just arrived from England. A mechanic named Frank Delaney wipes his hands on an oily rag and pries it open. Inside lies the heart that will transform the war. The British-designed, American-built Packard 1650 Merlin engine. "Can't believe the Brits let us borrow their crown jewel," Delaney mutters, as he and his team begin hoisting it toward the waiting airframe. For months, the U.S. Army Air Forces had struggled to find a fighter that could protect its bombers deep into occupied Europe. The P-47 Thunderbolt was tough but thirsty, its fuel range too short to escort B-17s all the way to Berlin. The early P-51, with its Allison engine, was nimble but gasped at high altitude, useless against the Luftwaffe's best. That was before a handful of British test pilots made a suggestion that sounded absurd at the time. Why not put the Merlin into the Mustang? The idea was born out of desperation and ingenuity, a British engine in an American airframe. Engineers at Rolls-Royce's Hucknall facility tried it first, grafting a Merlin 61 onto the Mustang's sleek frame. The result was shocking. In test flights over the English countryside, the new hybrid screamed past 430 miles per hour and climbed higher and faster than anything the Allies had yet built. The British pilots landed grinning. "She's not a horse anymore," one said. "She's a thoroughbred." By the time the first P-51Bs reached England in late 1943, the 8th Air Force was bleeding. Hundreds of bombers had been lost over Schweinfurt, Regensburg, Bremen. Daylight raids without protection had become suicide runs. Then came the Mustang. When the first of them joined the 354th Fighter Group at Boxted, England, the crews were skeptical. The ground crews called it the Pretty One. Too streamlined, too fragile, too new. But when Major James H. Howard took one on a test flight at altitude, the disbelief vanished. God Almighty, he whispered through his oxygen mask as the altimeter climbed. She just keeps going. The Merlin gave the Mustang not just speed, but range, nearly double that of any Allied fighter. With drop tanks slung under its wings, it could now fly from England to Berlin and back again. Across the Channel, in occupied France, German radar operators began to notice something strange. Small, fast-moving blips appearing farther inland than any American fighter had ever reached before. The Reich didn't know it yet, but the walls of its air defense were about to collapse. January 1944. Over the North Sea. The rising sun glints off the aluminum wings of hundreds of B-17s and B-24s flying eastward in formation. Below them, the sea looks calm, deceptively so. At 27,000 feet, frost crawls across glass canopies, and vapor trails stretch like white scars across the morning sky. In the cockpit of a P-51B Mustang named Mary Jane, Lieutenant Robert Hutch Hutchins checks his gauges. The Merlin engine hums beneath him, a steady, confident growl. For the first time, he isn't turning back halfway across the Channel. For the first time, he'll be with the bombers all the way to the target, deep inside Germany. Boxted red lead to control, Hutch radios. Mustang group on station. We're taking them all the way in. The voice that crackles back sounds almost disbelieving. Copy that, red lead. Godspeed. They cross the coastline near Amsterdam, climbing into the thin, blue air. The bombers drone ahead like a moving city, sunlight flashing off their gun turrets. Hutch glances down at his fuel indicator, then at the vast green expanse below. Europe unfolding beneath him like a wounded map. Inside one of those bombers, a tail gunner named Joe Ramirez spots them through his scope. "We got company," he calls out, heart sinking for a moment before he recognizes the silhouettes. The long, sleek noses, the bubble canopies. Mustangs. Jesus, they actually made it. The bomber crew cheers. For months, they've flown into hell without help, watching the Luftwaffe tear their formation apart and then vanishing before Allied fighters could arrive. But now, silver P-51s weave through the formation like shepherds among sheep, their wingtips glinting in the sun. Far ahead, on a Luftwaffe airfield near Hanover, Oberleutnant Hans Becker, the same pilot who mocked the Mustang months before, climbs into his Bf-1 G6. The sirens have sounded, American bombers inbound. His mechanic shouts over the roar of engines. Escort fighters reported thunderbolts again. Becker shakes his head. They're saying something new. Mustangs. He laughs once, dismissive. The horse again, then this will be quick. Minutes later, he's climbing into the sunlight, the 109's Daimler-Benz engine roaring. He levels off at 25,000 feet and spots them, the bombers, black dots against the pale sky. And beneath them, fighters, smaller, faster, with silver fuselages and yellow noses. He dives. The first Mustang flashes past him in a blur, and before he can bank, tracers snap across his wing. The speed, the angle, impossible. He jerks the stick, heart pounding. Verdammt. But the Mustang is already gone, rolling through the clouds like a ghost. For the next 20 minutes, chaos reigns. The Luftwaffe's famed Schwarm formations, once the terror of the skies, disintegrate under the new threat. The Mustangs chase them relentlessly, diving, climbing, out-turning everything in sight. When Becker finally lands, smoke curling from his oil line, his hands are shaking. The radio is alive with panic. Squadrons reporting losses, bombers untouched. He climbs down from the cockpit and looks at the mechanic. "They were waiting for us," he says quietly, "all the way to Berlin." That night, as the airfields burn and the wrecks are counted, the laughter that once filled Luftwaffe ready rooms is gone. The Mustang, the plane they once called weak, has crossed the threshold. It owns the sky now. March 1944, England, RF Debden Airfield. The ground trembles beneath the steady thunder of Rolls-Royce Merlins warming up. Rows of P-51 Mustangs, their polished fuselages gleaming even in the dull English mist, wait along the tarmac like racehorses before the gate. Ground crews hustle between them, refueling, checking ammo belts, painting kill markings beneath cockpit rails. Captain Don Blakesley, commander of the 4th Fighter Group, strides down the line, helmet under his arm, eyes sharp. He stops beside a Mustang named Old Crow, pats the nose, and looks at the pilot, Lieutenant Clarence "Bud" Anderson. "Remember, Bud," he says with a grin, "we're not here to win dogfights anymore. We're here to end the Luftwaffe." Anderson nods. He knows what that means, not just to protect bombers, but to hunt down enemy fighters wherever they hide. The new orders are simple: seek, strike, and destroy. Moments later, the roar of takeoff fills the airfield. Dozens of Mustangs climb through the overcast, merging into formation above the Thames. Their long wings slice through the clouds, contrails intertwining like threads of fate stretching toward the continent. Berlin, CO9, 45 hours. On the ground below, the Reichstag lies shrouded in smoke. The capital that once seemed untouchable now echoes with the distant growl of Allied engines. Over the city, the bombers arrive. Hundreds of B-17s and B-24s, escorted by shimmering P-51s that dart among them like hawks. The German flak batteries open up, black blossoms exploding in the sky. Amid the thunder, the Mustangs dive on, intercepting FW-190s. Their 650 caliber Brownings flashing white tongues of flame. In the chaos, a German pilot named Karl Wittmann, flying cover for a squadron of Ju-88s, finds himself locked in a duel with one of the new American fighters. The Mustang climbs steeply, impossibly fast. Wittmann curses, trying to follow, but his Focke-Wulf stalls in the thin air. By the time he recovers, the Mustang is behind him. He never sees the tracers that rip through his fuselage. From the cockpit of Old Crow, Bud Anderson watches the FW-190 spiral down in smoke. "Scratch one more," he mutters, banking away. Through the thin radio static, he hears another pilot laughing. "Welcome to the new Luftwaffe flight school. One lesson, no graduates." By summer, the skies above Europe belong to the Mustang. Its long range, high speed, and agility allow the Allies to fly deeper than ever before, not just to Berlin, but beyond. The Luftwaffe, once feared as invincible, is bleeding to death. German aces like Adolf Galland and Johannes Steinhoff know it. In briefings, they speak in grim tones, not of tactics, but survival. "We are no longer fighting for victory," Galland admits. "We are fighting for time." On the other side of the channel, the mood is different. At every airfield from Debden to Leiston, mechanics scrawl victory tallies on Mustang cowlings, 109s, 190s, Me 410s. The fighters that once hunted bombers now hunt each other, and the Americans have the reach to end it. When the first B-17s escorted all the way back from Berlin land safely in England, the crews step out in stunned silence. Not a single bomber lost. For the first time in years, they can look at the sky and not see death coming. The Mustang has done what no plane before it could, made daylight bombing possible, turned the tide of the air war, and shattered the myth of German dominance in the sky. As spring fades into summer, the Allies prepare for a new invasion. Across the Channel, Normandy waits. The airfields buzz with confidence and exhaustion. Pilots leaning on their Mustangs, faces streaked with oil and victory. And far away, in a ruined hangar outside Berlin, Oberleutnant Hans Becker sits beside the wreckage of his 109. The laughter that once echoed through Luftwaffe ready rooms is long gone. He lights a cigarette, watching the smoke curl into the morning light. Above him, another formation passes, silver wings flashing high in the sun. He exhales slowly and mutters to no one in particular. The horse learned to fly.